Welcome back. I am your host, Jessie Towns, and this is the Keeping Shit Real podcast, a podcast for parents to neurodivergent children, because here we are keeping shit real with our day-to-day life. So I think this week, I can't really do the pod without talking about the doll that broke the internet last week. And yes, I am talking about Autistic Barbie. Now, I have seen a lot of negativity, a lot of positivity, and a lot of people on the fence about Autistic Barbie. And I just think it's so worth addressing that she's absolutely amazing. And it's one of those, isn't it, that when a toy that is released by Mattel, who are the company that own Barbie, that when something this monumental is released, there is always going to be people that love it or hate it. That's a fact. We are a human race. People either love things or they hate things or they sit on the fence. And the thing is, I think one of the main things that has been really forgotten about with Autistic Barbie is that when I started to, let's backtrack this a bit. When I started to hear the rumblings sort of at the end of December that Barbie was going to be released at the middle of January 2026, in my head, I envisioned her. She was going to be blonde, she was going to have blue eyes, and she was going to be a white doll. However, Mattel have completely gone so culturally, so racial aware of I feel that the demographic of parents that have mixed race or black or Asian children. Because let's be honest, black autistic children are very misunderrepresented. Autistic children are misunderrepresented, and if you feel that your child is invisible because they are misrepresented because there's no toys that represent them, but having a black or a mixed race or an Asian child that is autistic, then you are double invisible. And I think that this is one of the key things that when everybody was up in arms, sort of saying the whole me, it doesn't represent my child, we have to remember that as I am a white parent, my children are white. And I have always felt very represented by, mainstream media, by films and by toys. However, my counterparts of my mixed race friends, my black friends, my Asian friends, growing up, they probably never felt represented. And I think it's really key to remember that this is not more than just a doll. This is representation in two parts. It's representation for autistic children, but it's also representation for brown, Asian children as well that are autistic, because they are, like I said, very, very misrepresented all the time. And when you think about what it must feel like to be a young child, and when we play with toys, when I look at my own children, when I look at the twins who are now 8, when you are a child and you are playing with a toy, the whole point of playing with the toy is that you can envision yourself as that toy. You're completely engulfed in that playtime with it, and you're putting yourself in, that is me. And unfortunately, there's not much representation anywhere for brown, black, Asian, autistic children. And I think this is something that we need to remember, that this is a cultural shift as well, that people of colour are being better represented, and specifically children that are black and brown and Asian are being represented as being autistic. Now, I've done some research this week before I hit record on this podcast. Demographically and statistically, white autistic children get autistic diagnoses way quicker, whereas black autistic children, they very, very often miss early intervention because they are classified as it being a behavioural problem. And that is something that I hope and pray that this Autistic Barbie will potentially open doors for more families whose children are not white, because it will have that consideration that, not all white children can be autistic. There is black children that are autistic, there is Asian children that are autistic, and it's not a behavioural issue, which I find very, very sad that it's, that my counterparts of my black and Asian and brown families, they have more of a struggle, and it is about sort of being seen and heard. When Autistic Barbie was released last week. There was a lot of people as well on the internet were sort of saying, oh my God, look at it. Why, she's got the stereotypical type bits with her as in accessories. So yeah. So Autistic Barbie, if you've been living under a stone for the last sort of week to 10 days, Autistic Barbie has a few little accessories. So one of the main ones is that she holds an AAC machine. So an AAC machine is a communication machine. A lot of people were quick to shout from the rooftops that you shouldn't be labeling autistic children as being mathematician geniuses because she's holding a calculator. It's not a calculator. It is a AAC machine. And it's fabulous that she's got an AAC machine because a lot of people, unless they've got neurodivergent children, a lot of people do not know what an AAC machine is. An AAC stands for augmentative and alternative communication. As well as having the AAC tablet, she has got pink noise cancelling headphones. She has got a spinning fidget toy which attaches to her hand. She's got also, one of the main things is she's got a sensory friendly fashion outfit on. She's got a very loose fitting purple dress. It's short sleeved, it's A-line, it's a flowy skirt, and she's also got flat shoes. And the other thing that's really, I think, fabulous about it is that she's got articulated joints. Now, historically, Barbies don't have articulated joints, so they don't move. But the articulation that they have built into Autistic Barbie is in the wrists, it's in the elbows, allowing for representing stimming movements, which I think is really important because a lot of people as well, if they don't hang around with autistic children, but if they're not familiar with autistic children, this might now represent the stimming, because I know that when my 8-year-old son, Maxie, as you all know, he is high functioning autistic, he has a PDA profile and he has got ADHD. Maxie, when he doesn't, his stimming is he will tap his leg quite, not violently, but very, very hard and very, very repetitive. And I think people, when they see him out and about and he's doing that, it can cause quite a bit of movement for him. And I think it's just, again, this is about representation, but it's about awareness and people being aware that children that are autistic do have different behaviours to neurotypical children. So they've got the articulate joints. But also one thing that I was very slow off the mark to actually notice until I had a really, really good look at her. Now, I haven't got an autistic Barbie. I've got 3 sons. If they want to play with Barbie, I couldn't give 2 shits. But they just, they don't want a Barbie doll. They're into dinosaurs and sticks. And my oldest son is obviously nearly 17. So that ship has sailed with playing with dolls. But I went into Argos and I've had a good look at her. Now, one thing that I didn't notice, and I didn't really notice it with all the pictures that were sort of being spun around online, was that she has an averted gaze. So we know one of the main sort of, I would say, when you're getting your child diagnosed with autism, that one of the key things that they look for in their observations is how well their eye contact is. And the doll, she's specifically designed with a slightly side-looking gaze, because we know quite a lot of autistic children don't like eye contact and they just can't physically make eye contact. But it's really worth remembering as well that this Barbie doll she is part of the Fashionistas line. So what she is aiming to do is representation for autistic children by focusing on common tools that are sensory and regulation, and also how children that are autistic can communicate. And I think a lot of people, like I said, they don't know what an AAC machine is. So it's very good that she comes with these accessories. But again, with the Fashionista ones, that you can buy different things. Now, should she have come with an entire sensory pack? Not just a targeted doll. That is, again, for people to argue that, autism doesn't look like anything, and if you've met one autistic child, you have met one autistic child, which is absolutely correct. However, could you imagine if your child wasn't white, didn't have blonde hair? Generally, we know that Mattel Barbies, yes, they have got black Barbies, we've got wheelchair Barbies, we've got Down syndrome Barbie, we've got a fully adapted Barbie dream house for the wheelchair using Barbie. But again, we can't put into a box that everybody that uses a wheelchair has also got the same need. You could have somebody who's in a wheelchair that is got motor neurone disease, somebody who could use a wheelchair because they're an amputee. You've got somebody who uses a wheelchair because they were born with a birth defect. You've got people that use a wheelchair that may have cerebral palsy and they need to use a wheelchair occasionally. So again, it's the recognizing that the representation is really important for the fact that, this is a talking point as well for people where they can talk about it. But also it's for the families that are not white. This is a representation that maybe somebody, a neurotypical child, will be playing with a Barbie, and they will have a better and a bigger understanding and awareness that it's not just white children that are autistic. And I think that with the release of her, there is always going to be a lot of negativity. It was very hot on the internet last week about what she should have looked like, what she shouldn't have looked like. And as you know, I'm a white woman. I've got 3 white children. My autistic son doesn't wear ear defenders. He can't bear them, in fact. He does love a fidget spinner, but I felt represented by it. And it's just about even starting. We have to start somewhere. And I think that this is a really pivotal moment for autistic children, that there is something that now represents them. And you can take from it what you want to take from it. We're never going to, Mattel never going to be able to please everybody. And there was quite a lot of this doesn't, me vibes on the internet and social media last week. Like, this doesn't represent my child. This doesn't, this is a complete putting into one box. And, autism doesn't look like this. And autism is a hidden disability. But let's not forget, autism is also not a hidden disability. And it's a shame that some people have taken it quite far. There's been a lot of, there has been some quite, I don't know, I would say some quite far out things said about her, about how she is not what she should be. But again, representation, if representation can make a child feel powerful, if it can make a child feel proud, and it can make a child feel seen, then it's never just going to be a doll, is it? It's going to be a mirror of how they see themselves and that they are being represented. And I just think, if we think back to Black Panther, we all remember the Black Panther film, which is one of Marvel's highest grossing films of all time. Now, the reason why Black Panther was so successful, Black Panther wasn't just successful because he's cool as fuck, because let's be honest, he is cool as fuck. And it's not just because it was just another Marvel film. Black Panther was really successful because it was a cultural moment and a bit of a cultural movement. For many black families, it was the first time that they saw a black superhero that wasn't a sidekick or, wasn't sort of a comic sort of, like in the wings, so to speak. And it was a heavily predominantly black cast were portrayed as, they were all portrayed as powerful. They were all intelligent. And it represented African culture as advanced, futuristic, well-respected. And children saw themselves in those heroes because they looked like them. And that is what led the story of Black Panther being so successful. And the impact that has on black children, brown children, mixed race children, Asian children, is that they see in themselves that they could be leaders, that they can be innovators, that they can be protectors, that they can be heroes. And this kind of representation will always tell children that you belong in powerful spaces. And this is why Autistic Barbie, not being white, I feel, was super powerful when they were designing her. For many children that have seen Autistic Barbie last week, it will be their first experience of a positive central representation of a major franchise. And it's just really important that we don't forget that this is a cultural movement also. We've come a long way representing different cultures and different races. And to be honest, we should be doing better. It is 2026. And when an autistic child looks and they see that doll and that she has got the same skin colour, or she's got the same dark hair or the same dark eyes, it's positive and it's accurate. and it reduces isolation for those children. So I'm all here for Barbie not being autistic, Barbie not being white. I think she's amazing, and it really helps families feel that their child is a part of a community, both from their race and also their neurodiversity. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to combat stereotypes, because black children, as we know, with autism are more likely to be misdiagnosed. It's either with behavioural or disciplinary issues. So when we have representation, it challenges all of our stereotypes. You get a black autistic doll or a mixed race autistic doll, a story or a character, and it shows autism is crossing racial lines, and it encourages empathy and understanding, not just from children, but from healthcare professionals, from schools. And it's just so fabulous that it could help a teacher, it could help a doctor, it could help their peer see the child's identity, and not through a biased assumption or an opinion. And yeah, I do think Barbie has quite a big impact on children, especially young girls and young boys. And it's just one of those that I think that Autistic Barbie is she's symbolic, she's meaningful, she's representing, and she matters for all autistic children. But the attention to the racial disparity is really, really essential here. And, Mattel didn't just think, oh, right, we're just going to bash out an autistic Barbie here and we'll hope for the best. She took 18 months in the making, and it wasn't Mattel, it was heavily led by autistic advocates from the ASAM, which is the Autistic Self-Advocacy Network, because they wanted to make sure that children that are autistic were represented. And it does matter, because can a doll really change the way children see themselves? Yes, it can. And it took 18 months to them. And the fact that she's priced at $8.99 also, I think is just absolutely amazing. And I think we should be positively acknowledging and the reception of the fact that this has been made and designed by an autism advocacy community. Now, I know people might be completely disagreeing with me on this, but, I'm keeping shit real. And this is what this podcast is all about. It's about speaking about sometimes uncomfortable things that people don't want to speak about. Yep, there are, and people are asking, like, how does this, corroborate, and how does this match my autistic child? But what we are trying to do is change the narrative of stereotyping that autistic children are going to be white. And it's not just as simple. It does have a deeper impact. Now, yesterday, I spoke to the lovely Lorna, who on Instagram, if you don't follow her, she's Alanis, Ocean and Rain Mansford. Now, Lorna and I were talking quite a deep and meaningful conversation yesterday about her husband is black. Lorna is from Irish descendant. So Lorna was saying, her daughter, Alanis Ocean, is 4, and her children are mixed race. And she just said it's just her daughter's face lit up. She just couldn't believe that it's a doll that looks like my child. It's not the stereotype blonde hair, blue eyes, very, very normal looking Barbie doll, which we are very, very in tune to see. And Lorna, when we were discussing it, we were saying it's so important that young children, specifically girls, because we do know that girls, they're heavily influenced, aren't they, by features, by how they aesthetically look. And as they're growing up, we've seen a massive rise in social media and health and beauty accounts. And as these children grow up, being represented by how they look is so, so important for any child's mental health. And the haircut on Autistic Barbie also it's a messy cut. Because as we know, that's another one of the main sensory issues that my son has, is that he will not have his hair cut. And when he does, even if he goes to the barber, it's always a little bit lopsided. I am not going to lie to you, because he won't sit still and he hates it. So they generally get one side done very, very quickly and very well. And then by that point, his concentration's gone. He's like, nah, fuck this. I've had enough. I don't like it anymore. So again, we have to pick our battles with haircuts. But being represented in that respect is just so important. And if we look at other pivotal films for children that have been released in the last sort of 10 to 15 years, and the one that stands out to me the most is Moana. So Moana, I'm sure we've all seen it. I mean, what an amazing film. But Moana was pitched by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who obviously is the main character in Moana. And he pitched it to Disney Pixar because it wasn't just another Disney film. Moana was designed, and well, not designed, that's the wrong word. Moana was written because it was Disney, up until that point, had no films centered around brown and indigenous girls. And it's obviously, as we know, the Moana story tells the story in a Pacific Island culture and all the history that comes with that, and also the mythology. But it shows a girl whose journey wasn't about romance, because Moana, a lot of, you look at a lot of Disney films and they're, the girls in them, the lead character girls, it's all about romance. However, Moana's story was also very different, but it was led on purpose. She was a lead, but also the identity of the fact that representation matters. She wasn't trying to become something else. She didn't need rescuing. She didn't need to change who she was. And it mirrors what autistic representation should do. It's not fixing autistic children, but it's affirming them. And again, Moana, she looked very different. And it's about children seeing the joy in a doll or in a film, finally seeing yourself reflected in what you're playing with, what you're seeing. And it is the power of cultural accuracy and respect. We have to respect. And I just think there's everybody that's on the fence and it doesn't respect. If you are a parent and you're a white parent and your children are white, we've been very represented our entire lives. However, just think about the children that don't get represented. They don't get represented through the mainstream media. They're not represented through films. They're not represented through toys. That's doubly invisible. And that's really hard for a parent to explain to their child of why they're not represented by their skin colour. Again, Moana, Black Panther, Autistic Barbie. It's not challenging, who gets to be the hero. And it's what we want to do with kids and with toys. And everybody keeps on forgetting this. We want children to imagine that anything is possible. How can you relate that anything is possible if the skin colour of yourself is different to a toy? And let's be honest here. I mean, Barbie's a pretty bit of a big old toy franchise. Mattel have been making Barbie for years. I don't actually quite know. I don't know how old Barbie is. She's got to be knocking 100, hasn't she? Is she 100? I don't know. But it matters for family. Representation matters. And representation in terms of racial and diversity, it influences a child's self-esteem, their mental health, and how they belong. So this is what I just wanted to, if you were one of those people last week, or if you were thinking the same as me, that it's not really about the autistic Barbie, but it's about how different she looks. And they have gone against the stereotyping of what generally an autistic child is generally fixated as a white child. And I just think anything that squashes stereotypes, brings in inclusion and diversity, and makes more children feel that they can achieve anything, then I am fucking down for it, because every child should feel represented in everything they do in their life. So that's the end of this week's pod. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please, please, please remember to download, subscribe, rate and review to the pod, because it really helps with my rankings. And also the PDA Parent Circle. If you're listening to this and you've got a child with PDA and you are not in the PDA Parent Circle, where are you? Are you under the same rock as the not noticing the Autistic Barbie being released last week? It is the best thing I've ever done in my life. I'm so glad that I set up the PDA Parent Circle. Like, listen, we're going to be one next week. We are going to be one next week. It's going to be our 1 year anniversary. And I fucking love it. I just love the community that it brings together. The WhatsApp chats are great, and it's not only helped me be a better parent, but I know it's helped people from going mental that have got children with PDA. So click in the show notes. You'll see a link during the PDA Parent Circle. And that is it from me this week. I hope you're all thriving and surviving in January. We've got a week left until payday. I mean, I've also got to say this. I've never eaten so much food out my freezer in the last week. It has been insane. I'm like, oh yeah, let's just get that out. So thanks for listening. Take care. Love you. Bye.